All right, guys, this is not our usual schedule and not the usual process that I follow when I'm doing these live streams, and I already did my kind of live stream from home, for lack of a better description here earlier this week, but I happened to be in the studio today, so I thought I would just do a quick live stream tour, and I know most of you are probably not going to be watching this live. You'll probably be watching later. So even though it isn't Ask Me Anything, you can throw questions at me if you happen to catch me while I'm launching this at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. But since I was in the studio, I thought I would just go live and just try it out and see if these types of commentaries work well for you. And the reason why I was doing this, I filmed a couple of videos here earlier today, and then I was kind of just watching Bob Ferguson, Governor Ferguson here, after he signed all these just destructive and abusive bills on Tuesday, pretty much, deciding to obviously just sign off completely on the largest tax increase in state history. So nobody has basically tried to acquire more tax than Governor Ferguson has done. No governor in state history has ever done that. Bloated the budget larger than it's ever been before, of course, and the largest increase that it's ever had in 1 year before. Along the way, obviously, there was a bit of a kerfuffle because Tim Eyman was standing behind him at the first bill that he was actually signing, which turned out to be gutting the Parents' Right initiative. And so that was funny. Brandy Cruz reacted to that very funny. I did a little video about it just so that people can understand what that process is actually like, because when people wondering how does Tim Eyman get in the background there. So I did a whole video kind of explaining what that process is like. I've been there at bill signing ceremonies, and they kind of get you a little staged in the background, and then you kind of run out. And then they kind of bring you in. It's like a cattle call, and they're kind of bringing you in for each of these bill signing ceremonies. I've only done them. I've only been there when Inslee was signing bills, but Eyman's been around for a long time. He was there for various bill signing events in the past with Gregoire and others. But obviously it was pretty significant because when you had Tim Eyman standing right behind Ferguson, he being Governor Ferguson just seemed to have a complete mental break and didn't know what to do about it. And obviously it had a big impact on him. I think it was Brian Haywood that put out an X post saying, with the photo there of it, the Tim Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrows, right? Just from Wizard of the Oz, as you saw Governor Claire Wilson there, melting down and reacting like somebody had stole her Christmas treats, with that sourpuss look on her face. One of the many weirdos, unfortunately, that we have in the state Senate, but in the state House, unfortunately, we seem to be putting a lot of really weird and strange people in there lately. But so all that drama was going on, and then it's almost like that just triggered Ferguson then to go into what appears to be just his natural comfortable setting, which is Trump derangement syndrome. And so every public hearing that he's had since that bill signing day, all he's done is he's gone out there and he's just elaborating about Trump this and Trump that and Trump this and Trump that. And so he spends, obviously Donald Trump is just living in Bob Ferguson's head right now, as apparently Tim Eyman is as well. And the way that he's touring the state, basically trying to blame every failure that he's involved in personally, trying to shift the blame to Trump for any of the failures they have there. And then, of course, as I predicted earlier, using, and I believe this is his plan, is to use some of these tax increases or rainy day fund monies or whatever he thinks he can get away with, and take that cash and then use it to buy influence with whatever special interest he's hoping to impact by taking that money and then tax our money, not his money, but it's our money. He'll act like it's his. And then just like he did the chicken tuna checks and the other type of activity he did when he was in the AG's office, he's going to carry that forward now. And his obsession with Trump has no, it's TDS, full-blown TDS here. And so he's going to take the taxpayer dollars that he believes he can get access to as governor, and he's going to be handing it out like candy to his special interests, and then blaming Trump for why he has to do that. And of course, it works well for him in both ways. To his hard left base, who definitely, there's some conflict during the legislative session, as they were basically attacked his policy staff and got his policy staff to resign and prevented him from going into the 2 caucus meetings or groups, which has not happened in recent times. And then now that he kind of went back to his real roots and he decided to go full-blown, let's just tax everything and raise the biggest taxes we can. He's trying to go out and still play to that hard left base by blaming everything on Trump. And that just plays well because you're just kind of preaching to the choir that a bunch of people that don't really have the ability to think beyond this DC-oriented obsession, and it's just everything's Trump. I mean, I've actually never seen anybody get in the head of so many local politicians as Donald Trump has, and Governor Ferguson's obviously the guy who's doing that. So anyway, that's going on now, and despite the weird hour that I'm doing this, I'm seeing a bunch of you jump on and basically throw some questions out here. So let's go for them. As I get to the questions that you're asking, you're going to see those down below, and I'll see if I can answer them. I'm not planning to be on super long right now, but maybe a half-hour show. But let's just jump into it and see what we can see. Let's get to the first question. Is his arrest, this is K. Nagel here, is his arrest possible? I'm assuming you're referring to Ferguson. And has he broken the law? No, I don't see that, no to the first question. I don't think that anybody's going to be arresting Bob Ferguson anytime soon. And has he broken the law? Sure, Bob Ferguson breaks the law all the time. He breaks the law every day. Does it rise to the level that you've motivated somebody to go in and actually do something about it? I don't know, and I doubt it most of the time. It's one thing. I mean, remember Ferguson did a lot of shady stuff when he was in the AG's office. And so he's going to be a shady guy in the governor's office, apparently. And so just because he breaks the law doesn't mean anybody's ever going to hold him accountable. So anyway, it's more interesting just to see this weird, strange, like clearly Trump is in Ferguson's head. Every single speech he has given since he did those bill sign, and really, frankly, a large percentage of them before. This is obviously his safe space, is to go into just screeds about Donald Trump. And so that obsession is clearly going to be driving him for apparently the next 4 years of his administration. And so what we're seeing now is just a fairly good indication of what that's going to look like. Siniera Frankenstein, please explain if you know, do we have a state exit tax now, or is it in the making? I want to get out of here before they steal my money for leaving. I'm not aware of any exit tax or them actually talking about it. I know that was a California idea, and because Ferguson's oftentimes views himself as like the mini-me to Gavin Newsom, or at least he has in recent times, maybe he would try to imitate what Newsom has tried to do in California, but possibly because California's had so many problems blowing up on their own down there, it's possible that Ferguson may be trying to distance himself a little bit from Newsom, just because it hasn't seemed to work out too well for him. But remember, Newsom's, that's always been kind of Ferguson's idol, and so the fact that Newsom seems to be blowing himself up in a lot of ways, I'm not sure that Ferguson's imitating him or planning to imitate him so much moving forward. Now, one of the other things I was going to mention, though, that's interesting is that there is one way that he does seem to be directing an imitation of Newsom, and that is Ferguson seems to be highly interested in seeing if he can cause a large percentage of Washington State to burn down this year, or at least make it difficult to address any fires that might happen in Washington State. Now, granted, we don't, particularly on the west side of the state, we don't typically have the type of fires that California does, where they regularly seem to burn up towns and cities. But Ferguson did direct a massive cut to the wildfire budget at the state level. Forget anything with the feds. This has nothing to do with the feds. This is 100% the state cutting a huge portion of the budget. So I don't know if that's Ferguson deciding that he doesn't like Dave Upthegrove, who's head of the Department of Natural Resources now as the Public Lands Commissioner, and that's more of an intramural squabble, and Ferguson wants to cut that budget so that he can pretend to be the hero when the fires end up, we have fire season and our forests have been terribly mismanaged in Washington. So maybe he's just planning to let the fire start and then force Up the Grove to come back to him begging for more money. And then Ferguson gets to pretend like he's the hero and give him money. That's kind of fits his profile and past behavior. So perhaps that's what he's planning to do. And like Newsom, forest fires can destroy a lot of things in Washington state as well. If the spring ends up being wet or it rains a lot and we don't have much of a fire season, then that plan won't come to fruition this year. But I'm sure he'll backburner it and try it again in the near future. Anyway, it's just kind of it's a funny, strange world out there right now, watching Ferguson just melt down afterwards. Christine Lagerstrom, I have heard you comment that to make an impact, get involved with the school board. How does a common sense person get on a school board without the blessing of the teachers union? Well, the teachers union doesn't control everything. And that's a good question, by the way, Christine. This is an excellent question. Obviously, if you believe math is real and you can distinguish between a man and a woman, and you don't think that Common Core math is the optimal path to education, then the teachers union is going to be against you, right? They primarily want the most ignorant people and most corrupt people that they can find to get into these, and particularly just rubber stamp people. They like that too. If they can get those kind of people on the school board, they can convince them to do things like what the Marysville School District did, which is essentially just bankrupt your district and giveaways to the union. It was actually very predictable. Marysville School District, I remember in a report that I was working on at the Freedom Foundation going back to 2014, is what I remember doing this. It was predictable that the Marysville School District was going to bankrupt itself because the teachers union had convinced the school board at the time, the superintendent who worked there, to sign on agreements that were mathematically impossible for the school district to afford. And that is the path that the teachers union likes to go down, is destroy the school district, extract all the cash, and then take as much money as they can from these teachers. And then as they destroy whatever special programs are there that the community actually wants, and then they can cry poverty, pretend like the state's not giving them enough money, even though they're getting more money than they ever have in the history of the state of Washington. And then they can justify then trying to go back for another kick the can down the road and get another big tax increase. That's usually what they do. It's a pretty predictable rinse, wash, repeat cycle for the WA. And fighting against that's tough because they do have money. But there's many people that have been elected to school boards that aren't part of the teachers union, aren't endorsed by it, and in fact are going in opposition to some of these WEA-backed corrupt school board candidates. So many people do get elected. I mean, you just have to get out there, be engaged and involved. The average person in the community doesn't tend to be paying attention on the school board. They just don't pay attention to it. An average in a given school district, it's unlikely you have more than maybe 20% of the population, that'd be the most, I think, that has a child or a grandchild or a close relative of some kind that's in the school system at that given time. And so those are people who are most invested in how the school district's going from just a day-to-day standpoint. And so those people care and they're paying attention to what's going on, but the rest of the people aren't paying. They either don't have kids, or they're single, or their kids are long grown, or they don't, they're new to the community or something. They're just not aware of what's going on in the school district. So school board races are easier to win in the sense that the turnout numbers are always going to be lower. The question is, how do you communicate with the public? And you have to come up with plans that allow you to communicate to the public. The media is not going to do it for you. To whatever degree the media still exists, the traditional media in your community, and I doubt they exist much at all, but if they exist at all, they're not going to pay much attention to the school board unless the WA gives them a bunch of money to write a story either hitting on you or promoting whatever corrupted candidate that the WA supports. So how are you going to do it, right? You're not going to probably raise huge amounts of money. It's very rare that school board races generate that kind of financial interest. So you have to come up with relatively low budget ways of reaching and reasonably effective ways of reaching the community. You can use social media to spread your word, but it's you're not going to be able to typically use boosting or official third-party kind of programs. Sometimes you can, but there's a lot of restrictions that have been imposed on them, mostly as an overreaction to the public disclosure rules and the campaign finance laws. So you can make literature drops when you go out and go in the community. I do encourage people to do that. If they don't know you at all, that's one way of getting out there and reaching out out and contacting people. Be familiar with the boundaries of your districts. You know where to campaign. It's not infrequent. I've seen it happen before where candidates just aren't familiar with what the boundaries are and they don't have the map. And so they go to places that aren't even in the district and the people they're talking to can't vote. But doorbelling and contacting people directly, unless you're a person that doesn't come across very well, in which case doorbelling will actually hurt you. But hopefully you've done enough homework and you're familiar enough with the issues and you're a personable enough guy or gal, you can go out there and reach out and contact them. And I find that to be making quite a bit of a difference over time. Let's see. We're going to any questions here. Sorry, I'm skipping up here. I know this was kind of a last minute thing, but I thought it was. K-Boom, God wins. The TDS is because he knows he's on Trump's chopping block and he's just drawing more attention to himself. It could be. I actually think that Ferguson's a lot more arrogant than that. And he'll have two concerns, I think, that are... There'll be three concerns with the Trump administration that Bob Ferguson as governor is going to have. The most pressing concern to him is going to be election reform, and the June reveal, in theory, assuming that the executive orders followed to the date that it actually was proposed, where they're going to expose how screwed up Washington State's election voter rolls are. And then by default, by doing that, you're going to be exposing some of the other problems that are related to historic election data. And so that's a threat to Ferguson, and he cares about that because that has an potential to impact his political power. Maybe not directly for a few years, but it will be direct in the sense that it has the ability to impact leg seats and Senate seats in the upcoming 2026 election, and maybe even some impact on the special elections this cycle. And so Ferguson, if there's one thing he'll do, he will commit any crime he has to retain political power. And so power is what this is all about for people like this in the political establishment. And so that's probably the biggest threat. That's truly probably his biggest concern. Sort of a backseat to that, but at the next level, is going to be this Act Blue investigation and the fact that the primary kind of money laundering operation that's been able to funnel close to 60%, I think, of all money coming into political campaigns, including Bob Ferguson's own, has come through Act Blue. And Act Blue under federal investigation and with all the problems that entity has, especially with the inevitable reveal about how screwed up things really are, probably a lot worse than people realize. That's why all the leadership there quit and their attorney quit. And as the feds actually have access to the Treasury Department data, it's really going to be revealing a lot of bad things there. And so as that big source of cash kind of disappears, Ferguson's probably having to spend some time helping the left in the state and the Democrats perhaps organize something to replace that funnel for all that cash that was coming in. And again, that's because that's what drives political power. Now, he's governor, so he's able to raise money on his own without Act Blue, but it's going to potentially affect him being able to raise as much as he wants and possibly being able to oppose any initiatives that could be coming up that he's going to have to fight again. And you saw that Stranger article, or maybe you should have, about the Stranger, which is a terrible left-wing newspaper in Seattle, sometimes still reveals its true inner self when they write these article headlines about, Haywood's going to haunt us with even more initiatives now, and they're panicking over the fact that there may be more initiatives they have to fight. Keep in mind, Brian Haywood helped drain probably $50 million, $60 million out of the left just in the last couple of years with his initiative effort. You saw complete and total meltdown panic. Every single entity on the left was mobilized to try to stop those initiatives. And the fact that Brian's not going away is probably freaking them out a little bit. So they're overreacting on that front, and they need money because they don't have much grassroots support on their side. So money overcomes the lack of grassroots support. And I got a feeling that that's part of it. Now let's get to the third thing that Ferguson's probably, this is going to be the most verbal and visual issue that he'll make a point of as he's traveling around the state on the Trump Derangement Syndrome Tour right now. And that is that any money that the feds potentially cut from the state budget in Washington State, or money money that would otherwise be coming out here. Bob Ferguson's going to make a huge circus story out of it and have a big sob story. Now, the truth is, anybody who digs into a lot of these, not every single dollar, but a good percentage of it is wasted. I mean, sending that money to Washington State isn't much different than sending it to California. You might as well just pile it out in your front yard and set it on fire. It doesn't achieve anything good for the people who live in that state. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And Washington State does everything to demonstrate why they can't be trusted with federal funds. Not every single program, but I would say a good percentage of them. And so what Ferguson has to do now is, and this is kind of an advantage, I don't actually think he's that concerned about this. Ferguson's going to take any of these cuts that are coming, cut off programs. Ending fraud, waste, and abuse is definitely a campaign that Ferguson wants to fight against. So he's going to defend fraud, waste, and abuse in government at every step of the way. That's not something that he has a problem with. So he's going to pretend that it's not fraud, waste, and abuse, and he's going to come out and try to say, listen, it's so bad. It's destroying the world. He's not giving money for us to funnel through our grant grifting operations in Seattle and kick it all out as part of the money laundering operation for the Sinaloa drug cartel anymore. And so, by God, we're going to have to keep that money funnel going. And so let's take some of our emergency funds and let's kick it out. And he can be Santa Claus handing out your tax dollars to his insiders. I anticipate that's probably the program. Remember, he has to keep the left liking him, because right now the plan, I think, on the left is to primary Bob Ferguson. And so he needs to, or at least it's been that discussed for a while. So Ferguson needs to shore up his left-wing base. The Trump Derangement Syndrome Tour he's on right now is going to be part of that shoring up, and then handing out cookies that he takes out of the taxpayer cookie jar and throws it out to his political allies and supporters is a big part of this process. So I don't think he minds so much that Trump's cutting off that money, because that serves an excuse to actually justify Ferguson's reason for existing, which apparently is to fight against Trump or fight about Trump, or at least think he's fighting about Trump because Trump is living in his head. So let's see. Steve, how do we get our gun rights back? Well, we have to repeal the stupid laws. So that's one thing. Now, that can be done by being overturned at the federal court level. That could happen. I know there's several cases that are proceeding in that area. Or you could elect maybe better people in the state legislature to repeal it. That's the other way to do it. The next question, will we ever be truly be free Washingtonians? This is from Nick Smith. Well, the truth is, that's a great question for people to ask in America in general, because frankly, what I find is not every dumb policy that Washington State has been implemented in the red states yet. But if you go out there and you pay attention to what's actually going on in those states, the clowns that are running those governments, oftentimes they may have an R next to their name, but I see them doing the same dumb, stupid things that Washington State was doing a number of years ago. And it doesn't matter if you're in North Dakota or Oklahoma or Idaho or any other place. Frequently what I find is that they may call themselves Republicans, but they are allowing themselves to go down the yellow brick road of stupidity that Washington State's done and Oregon's done and others. I mean, pushing back against this is a not easy path to, it's just a hard thing to do. And for whatever reason, politicians get into office, and regardless of whatever the letter next to their name, especially if they've been in a state that's always been Republican, they can't seem to distinguish what the optimal policies would be if you actually care about liberty and freedom, and they seem to lose their way. And they'll impose central planning schemes, they'll impose tax increases, they'll impose bureaucracy bloating programs, and they seem to be unaware that that is just simply under a different name and a different party pushing the same stupid ideas that places like Washington have done. So the big question is, will you ever be free in America? The answer is no, if you keep electing people like this to do these things. The other thing is, there's no instant solution to these problems. There's no Sunday afternoon special 2-hour solution to the problems that ail us on a political front. Winning elections has to be part of that process if you want to make change. It is. You have to win elections at some point in time. You can't just sit back and lose every election and then think that you're going to import change, although you would think that the Democrats believed that after Trump got elected. So I'm going to throw this up here. Seth, you said, don't park in Seattle. That's where they get you. And it's funny because I was just up in Seattle. Hadn't been in Seattle for a while doing like a traditional tour, but I had an exchange student with us. I wanted to show her the Space Needle and Mopop and the waterfront and Pike Place Market. So yes, I went to all those places on Sunday with her and with some of my other kids with me. And it'd been a while since I had gone into Seattle as a tourist. I go up there to meet whistleblowers sometimes or for other meetings, but I hadn't been a tourist in a long time. I used to go up this top of Space Needle fairly commonly. This has been the first time in a while. So anyway, it was just fun to be down there, and I think I got away without them nailing me on the parking in Seattle. I did pay for my parking, but because of the length of the line at the Space Needle, I was 2 hours behind on it, and it looks like I'm okay, but those things can happen. Bastille Day, Ray Stewart, Bastille Day in Washington. Nope, I doubt it, but there's a lot of stuff moving forward. T.Z. Burton, will Republicans finally stop calling Bob Ferguson moderate now? Well, I see that that's potentially happening out there. And whether Republicans are calling him moderate or whether it's the left saying, is he part of the left now? I don't know. But Bob Ferguson is he's just probably a pathological liar, right? He can't probably help himself. And so he's just going to make up whatever story he thinks he has to the audience that he's in front of. And anyway, that's probably what he's doing. I don't know if they're going to keep trying to call him a moderate, but what he did on Tuesday with signing those bills is no indication of any kind of moderacy at all. Let's see. K-Boom, God wins. Do you know of any lawsuits starting to try and combat the massive taxes or unconstitutional gun laws? On the gun laws, yes, there's quite a few. Many of them are years into the process already. If you want to look at the Washington gun law channel, I would recommend that you do that. That one's the most updated. I think Bill Kirk does a better job staying on top of that than I've been able to. And the consistency of the videos and the history of what he's been able to put out, I think, is pretty good. That's the best channel for you to ask questions with him. And there's been a lot going on pushing back on some of those bills. On the tax increases, it varies. It's going to depend on which tax you're talking about. So there are some efforts probably being made, but I'm not sure. I don't know of any specific litigation. Or remember, lawsuits are not always the best and optimal path to go there. So anyway, you can always turn around the state, but when that happens, it just takes work, and it doesn't happen instantly overnight. No, we've gone through cycles in the past. Don't think we haven't. It's just because you and I were alive when those cycles have happened doesn't mean that they haven't happened before. And so, you're in the generation, you have to do the fight where you live in, not pretending to be somewhere else. Night Owl, Thurston County Commissioners and DNR. What's going on with the huge fire load in Capitol Forest? Commissioner Ty Menser and the special interest groups are stalling the cutting and the thinning of that timber. Why? Well, the reason is that Ty Menser hopes it all burns down. That seems to be the main policy of our environmental groups in Washington State. Nobody likes to watch a forest burn, and the hotter it burns, it appears to be the better, mainly because I think it allows them to pretend like climate change is why it burned, not crappy fire management policies and crappy timber policies. Mostly there's a shocking level of ignorance on people who pretend to be environmentalists in their attachment to science. They throw science right out the window when it comes to obviously understanding whether a man is a man or a woman's a woman, and they also throw science out the window when it comes to timber management or any kind of land use policies at all. And so it's more about the narrative they want to push. Usually it's global warming and the end of the world or some variation on that, global climate change, whatever they want to call it, because that's a great way to extract cash and justify squandering somebody else's dollars for your own dreams and schemes. Let's get into some of the other questions. I did not expect this many people to log on and an impulsive live stream today. So let's see. T.T. Burton, can anyone sue these bills, or are all the lawyers Democrats? Well, you don't really sue a bill. You can sue over the bill as implemented sometimes. But, most of the lawyers are Democrats. So answering your second one, so 80% of them, 90% of them are probably hard left Democrats. There's going to be some that don't care. They're mercenary. But remember, litigation's expensive and uncertain. Also, most of these you have to file in Superior Court for the most part. I think anybody that goes to Superior Court and anticipates any of the judges, or at least almost certainly none of the judges at the appellate level on up. You might occasionally find a local Superior Court justice who still is attached to the rule of law and the English language. But after that, they're all corrupted politically. And so because they've been appointed by governors who are specifically looking for the most corrupt people that they can put, and the people who they can control from the political narrative standpoint, none of those judges in those higher level positions are going to support anything that has the potential to rock the boat in the establishment in the state, at the state court level. There are two exceptions to that. Number one, the judges still pretend to care about openness in government and the Public Records Act. They still seem to believe that that's something important, and so you can win on those types of cases sometimes. They also still seem to be attached to First Amendment rights for the most part. Now, that may be eroding, but at this point in time, basic court cases, for the most part, they do seem to still support those. Anything else, any other freedom-oriented issues, our judges have sold their souls long ago to the political establishment, and the higher level judges, Supreme Court and appellate level, they're almost universally lost on those issues. They always defer to the government, and it's very rare that they'll ever rule against them. You will occasionally get Superior Court judges at the local level that will, but even most of them have pretty much sold their soul. Let's see. This is Christine Lagerstrom, and I wasn't planning on being around very long here, guys. So let's see. This is just curious. How does the Washington State DOJ efforts make a difference? If DOJ Washington finds abuse, is there any means to enforce removing it? That is a good question. Actually, this kind of came up last night. I was doing a DOJ training class up in Skagit County. If you were there, it was good to see you there. I didn't get a chance to talk to everybody afterwards, and we have another one coming up. I think the next one that I have coming up is going to be out in Tri-Cities, if I remember right. I got to go back and look at it. I am posting this on my website, so go to wethegovern.com and you can see the DOJ training classes. I'm going to do an upgrade there because we just had another class set up in Marysville. We have the location nailed down in Tri-Cities. I have the location, I think, nailed down up in San Juan County, and I think I'm pretty close to a Bellingham class and an Enumclaw class. So there's a number of them that are coming together, and as I get it finalized, I'll be updating that on the website. Let's see. Stupid laws. Yeah, BJ Bumblebee. That's funny. Yeah, you do. I mean, you have to have standing in order to bring a litigation. You can't just sue it against you can if you're on the left, but if you're a regular person, you're not going to be able to sue on bills just because they're dumb and unconstitutional by themselves, usually. Let's see. Aren't you worried about being property taxed out of your house? That's always a good thing to be concerned about when you have clowns in charge. Let's see. Glenn, with the property tax 1% cap lifted, do local counties, city, and towns have a local election to approve a property tax increase? It depends on where that percentage sits. I mean, you have a lot more flexibility in pushing back on local government, but you have to be willing to and get organized ahead of time. It's not as easy to do that. And T.Z. Burton, what are the odds? The 9-0 Democrat Washington State Supreme Court overturns these laws. Pretty low. I mean, they might do one just to try to pretend like they care about the law, but again, federal challenges to unconstitutional laws are the only way to go. No one on the Supreme Court either has read or pays attention to our state constitution. So, Ray Stewart, question for me, I think. Do you have a prediction for the real estate market in Washington State? That's what I'm assuming you're asking for. As much as there have been many times in the past where I've thought, wow, Washington State real estate's going to hit this point in time, it's going to kind of flatline out, or it's going to become more reasonable, or the Democrats might destroy a city fast enough and thoroughly enough that the real estate in that city will drop in value. I don't know. I mean, people make these predictions all the time, and I don't know where it's going to go. I have a general belief that the Seattle area is obviously the biggest concentration of wealth and real estate value in the state of Washington. It's obvious, and when you see that, that's just true. The question is, what impacts the Seattle real estate market enough to actually substantially drop it down? We've had times where the real estate's peaked, it's gone down, and then it goes up. You saw that happen after 9/11. You saw it happen after 2008 and 7. I remember when owning a house with my wife up in Fairwood, and which is Renton, and when we sold it, we were just at the peak before the crash. I mean, I think the crash had just started, but it was one of the highest sales of homes in the Fairwood Crest, which was the neighborhood it was in at the time, for probably for about 4 years, I think 5 years. But that trend up and down, going up, when you increase the cost of land by imposing Growth Management Act and other things. And so, I don't think there's anybody on the left that believes math is real anymore. The reality with the escalating rent cost is that that's a direct result of reducing the supply of land and adding a high volume of restrictions on the ability to do anything with your land. And so therefore, it retards the ability of people to actually grow and expand the community and provide lower income housing. And they think that they can replace that with the most expensive housing at all, which is low income government housing, which is always the most expensive option anybody could ever possibly find out there. So anyway, question here, Blue Jay. Did you see Tim Eyman right behind Ferguson the other day? That was on Tuesday. Yes, I did. Did a video about it, actually. That video should be coming out in the next couple days. My take on it, just to show you a little bit more about how that works and what was going on there. I did like how Brandy Cruz talked about it. It was kind of a funny explanation. And there's a little bit more work, I think I explained that. I'm not going to steal all my thunder on that particular video. Then here we go. I'm gonna start wrapping this up here, guys, because I wasn't planning to be on even this long. I'm surprised this many people jumped on in such an impulsive way in the late afternoon. You guys must either work, some of you must work for the government, you must be self-employed or retired, because usually most people have work right now and they couldn't talk in the middle of a day like this. Let's see, how about a collab video with Bill Kirk? Yeah, I've talked to him about it, and actually I'd love to do one with him. And he would too, and now it's just a matter of us coordinating and getting together. And I think that'd be fun. I'm a big fan of Bill's. Let's keep going. Let's see. Jim Hill, our son lives in Dallas. Austin and Houston, I'm assuming you meant Houston there, are painfully Democrat. They are. Parental rights are an issue there. Yes, it is. Same with the homeless industrial complex, which seems to own both Dallas and Austin right now. You cannot run away from these lunatics, and you can't. They're dumb, bad, destructive ideas, spread like a disease. And because our parents didn't deal with this stuff sooner, because we failed ourselves probably at times to be more aware of how bad these people really are when they get into government. We've just allowed these things to get out of control. So anyway, the enemy of freedom and liberty is not the Democrats or the left, and it is not. The enemy of liberty and freedom is apathy and ignorance. Apathy and ignorance is what allows you to create the circumstances by which the worst humans that you can possibly find in your community, and the most pathological, the most dishonest, that's how they get in charge of government, and they run for political office. And it's because apathy and ignorance allows them to get there. And that's oftentimes the big fight that we have, is pushing back against apathy and ignorance on these issues. With that, guys, I just wasn't planning having to be this long. I just was inspired by Ferguson's Trump Derangement Tour here. I'm probably going to have to just do a video about that coming up. I didn't record. That wasn't one of the subjects of my video today, but that I did record. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the two videos that I do launch over the next couple days here. We'll see you hopefully next week back at a regular time on Tuesday for a live stream. Thanks for indulging me, and I can't believe how many of you jumped on, a couple hundred people or so jumping on right now in the middle of an impulsive live stream here. So, and if you haven't gone to one of these Doge Washington events, the Doge Watch and Train events, even if you've been to some of the earlier ones, I'm kind of upgrading a lot of the handouts, the presentations that we're doing. And it is an opportunity, especially if you take advantage of it, to meet with other people in your community who care about the same issues that you do and who want to hold local government more accountable. So there's a lot of opportunities there, I think, in that stuff. And it's good to see so many of you out there, hundreds of people that I've already met and hundreds more. I think my goal is to probably train several thousand people this year on Doge, Washington, trying to hold them more accountable. I anticipate at least one journalist finally doing a hit piece on me at some point in time for daring to do this, but we'll see. And I'll point you there if I see some of those articles coming out. But that's it for now. So thank you guys so much for watching. If I saw you last night in Skagit County, it's good to see you. And we will hopefully enjoy the next couple videos. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.